Chapter 10, The Respiratory System. Introduction. The trillions of cells of our body need a continuous supply of oxygen to carry out the various and vital processes that are necessary for their survival. Cellular respiration, which converts food into the chemical energy of adenosine triphosphate ADP, produces large quantities of carbon dioxide gas. An excess accumulation of this gas in tissue fluids produces acidic conditions in the form of carbonic acid that can be poisonous to cells. Thus, this gas must be quickly eliminated. The two systems of the body that share the responsibility of supplying oxygen and eliminating carbon dioxide gas are the cardiovascular system and the respiratory system. The respiratory system consists of the organs that exchange these gases between the atmosphere and the blood. Those organs are the nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and lungs. In turn, the blood in the cardiovascular system transports these gases between the lungs and the cells. The overall exchange of gases between the atmosphere, the blood, and the cells is called respiration. This term is to be distinguished from the biochemical meaning of respiration. The respiratory and cardiovascular systems participate equally in respiration. If either system malfunctions, the body's cells will die from oxygen deprivation and accumulation of carbon dioxide gas, and death will be inevitable. The anatomy and functions of the nose. The nose has an external part and an internal part that is inside the skull. Externally, the nose is formed by a framework of cartilage and bone covered with skin and lined internally with mucous membrane. The bridge of the nose is formed by the nasal bones that help support the external nose and hold it in a fixed position. On the undersurface of the external nose are two openings called the nostrils or external nares. The hard palate of the mouth forms the floor of the nasal cavity, separating the nasal cavity from the oral cavity. Anteriorly, the internal nose merges with the external nose. Posteriorly, it connects with the pharynx or throat via two openings called the internal nares. The nasolacrimal ducts from the lacrimal or tear sacs empty into the nose, as well as four paranasal sinuses, air-filled spaces inside bones: sphenoidal, frontal, ethmoidal, and maxillary. The inside of both the internal and external nose is divided into right and left nasal cavities by a vertical partition known as the nasal septum. This septum is made primarily of cartilage. The top of the septum is formed by the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, and the lowermost portion is formed by the vomer bone. The anterior portions of the nasal cavities just inside the nostrils are known as the vestibules. These interior structures of the nose have three specialized functions. First, air is warmed, moistened, and filtered as it enters the nose. Second, olfactory stimuli are detected for the sense of smell. Third, large hollow resonating chambers are present for creating speech sounds. As the incoming air enters the nostril, it first passes through the vestibule. Because the vestibule is lined with coarse hairs, it filters out large dust particles. This is the body's first line of defense to prevent foreign objects from entering the respiratory system. The air then moves into the rest of the cavity. Three shelves are formed by the projection of the superior, middle, and inferior concave or turbinate bones. These extend out from the lateral wall of the cavity and almost reach the nasal septum. The cavity is subdivided into a series of narrow passageways called the superior meatus, middle meatus, and inferior meatus. Mucous membranes line the cavity and those shelves. Olfactory receptors are located in the membrane that lines the superior meatus. This area is called the olfactory region. Below, the membrane consists of pseudostratified, ciliated, columnar epithelial cells with many goblet cells that produce mucus. Blood capillaries are also found here. As the air whirls around the turbinate bones and meaty, or shelf passageways, it is warmed by the capillaries. Mucus secreted by the goblet cells moistens the air and traps particles not filtered by the hairs in the nose. In addition, drainage from the lacrimal ducts and sinuses help moisten the air. The cilia on the free edge of the epithelial cells move this mucus dust package back toward the throat so it can be swallowed and eliminated from the body through the digestive system. Its enzymes and acidic environment will destroy most microorganisms that may have entered with the air. The cold virus and the fluid U virus are not destroyed. As you can see, this is the sagittal view of the nasal cavity and pharynx. The structure and functions of the pharynx. The pharynx is also called the throat. It is a tube approximately 5 inches 13 centimeters long that begins at the internal nares and extends part way down the neck. Its position in the body is noted just posterior to the nasal and oral cavities and just anterior to the cervical vertebrae. Its walls are made of skeletal muscle lined with mucous membrane. The pharynx is a passageway for both air and food and forms the resonating chamber for speech sounds. It is divided into 3 portions. The uppermost portion is called the nasopharynx. It has 4 openings in its walls, the 2 internal nares and, just behind those, the 2 openings that lead into the auditory or eustachian tubes. In its posterior wall the pharyngeal or adenoid tonsils are located. The second portion is called the oropharynx. It has only 1 opening, the fauces, which connects with the mouth. Hence, the oropharynx is a common passageway for both food and air. The palatine handling wall tonsils are found in the oropharynx. The lowermost portion is called the laryngopharynx. It connects with the esophagus posteriorly and with the larynx anteriorly. The pharynx or throat serves as both a connection between the mouth and the digestive tract and as a connection between the nose and the respiratory system. The larynx or voice box. The larynx is also called the voice box. It is a very short passageway that connects the pharynx with the trachea. Its walls are supported by 9 pieces of cartilage. 3 of the pieces are single and 3 are paired. The 3 single pieces are the thyroid cartilage, the epiglottis, and the cricoid cartilage. The thyroid cartilage is the largest piece of cartilage and is also known as the Adam's apple. It is larger in males than in females and can be easily seen externally, moving up and down when a person is speaking or swallowing. The epiglottis is a large, leaf-shaped piece of cartilage. It lies on the tip of the larynx. It can be viewed in its entirety from a posterior view, but, anteriorly, one can only see its tip. The stem part is attached to the thyroid cartilage, but the leaf part is unattached and is free to move up and down like a trap door. When we swallow, This free edge or leaf-like part pulls down and forms the lid over the glottis. The glottis is the space between the vocal cords in the larynx. The larynx is closed off when we swallow, so that foods and liquids get routed posteriorly into the esophagus and are kept out of the trachea anteriorly. If anything other than air passes into the larynx, a cough reflex should dislodge the foreign material. When we try to talk and swallow at the same time, we choke and the cough reflex functions. Sensory receptors in the larynx detect the foreign substance and send a signal to the medulla oblongata, which triggers the cough reflex. There is taken in and the vestibular folds and vocal cords tightly close, trapping the air in the lungs. Muscular contractions increase the pressure in the lungs and the cords open, forcing air from the lungs at a very high velocity and carrying any foreign substance with it. The cricoid cartilage is a ring of cartilage that forms the lowermost or inferior walls of the larynx. It attaches to the first ring of cartilage of the trachea. This is the last of the 3 unpaired cartilages. The 6 paired cartilages consist of 3 cartilages on either side of the posterior part of the larynx. The paired acridinoid cartilages are latex-shaped and attached to the vocal cords and laryngeal muscles, and by their action they move the vocal cords. The corniculate cartilages are cone-shaped. The paired cuneiform cartilages are rod-shaped. The cuneiforms are located in the mucous membrane fold that connects the epiglottis to the acridinoid cartilages. The mucous membrane of the larynx is arranged into 2 pairs of folds, an upper pair called the vestibular folds or false vocal cords, and a lower pair called the vocal folds or true vocal cords. When the vestibular folds come together, they prevent air from exiting the lungs as when you hold your breath. Along with the epiglottis, the vestibular folds can prevent food or liquids from getting into the larynx. Under the mucous membrane of the true vocal cords lie bands of elastic ligament, stretched between pieces of rigid cartilage like the strings of a guitar. Skeletal muscles of the larynx are attached internally to the pieces of rigid cartilage and to the vocal folds. When the muscles contract, the glottis or opening is narrowed. As air exits the lungs and is directed against the vocal cords, they vibrate and set up sound waves in the column of air in the pharynx, nose, and mouth. The greater the pressure of air, the louder the sound. Take a full breath of air in and force it out all at once. You will create a very loud sound. However, if you take in a full breath of air and let it out slowly with less pressure, the sound you create will be much softer sounding. Pitch is controlled by tension on the true vocal cords. When the cords are pulled taut by the muscles, they vibrate more rapidly and higher pitch results. Decreasing the muscular tension produces lower pitched sounds. Try it. Because the true vocal cords are usually thicker and longer in men than in women, they vibrate more slowly, so men have a lower range of pitch than women. Sound originates from the vibrations of the true vocal cords. In humans, this sound is converted into speech. The pharynx, mouth, nasal cavities, and the paranasal sinuses all function as resonating chambers. The movement of the tongue and cheeks also contributes to creating the individual quality of human speech. As you can see, this is the larynx in lateral view. This is the larynx in anterior view. And the larynx in posterior view. This is the position of the vocal cord in the larynx.